All right, Jamie.
Yes, sir.
Jamie, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I was born there in 1980. Uh, Coming from originally very poor, my father's side of the family, my granddad literally had a hunt for squirrels for breakfast before school in the morning. And on my mom's side, they're immigrants from Italy. But on both sides of the family, they were able to pull themselves up. So I grew up having everything I wanted. It was a very Steel Magnolias kind of childhood in the South. And everything was really nice until everything kind of started breaking apart. One of the first things I remember really grabbing my attention was my uncle Buddy. He was a pharmacist. He had sold the pharmacy and he was just there to show the people that bought it how he did things. And as he was doing that, somebody came in to rob the pharmacy for drugs and beat him to death right there in the pharmacy. And it was all over the news for weeks. So every time it would come on, it would just cause more crying. And it was very frightening for a child to know that this man that was so nice and loving, that somebody had hurt him. Not very much long after that, my sister had a friend, Cricket, and I had a friend, Brandon. One day they didn't show up for school. When my mom picked us up, she was bawling. And what happened was their parents got a divorce, and that night their mom had given them a bath, given them sleeping pills, shot both of them, and then shot herself. So I knew from a very young age that violence and death can happen. You know, a lot of people retain this immortality, nothing can happen to me, well into their early 20s, but not me. I knew it could happen. We moved from the little town we lived in to inside of Birmingham, and the first year I was at this middle school, it was like lean on me. These guys have been held back, huge kids, like 16 gang fights. I was not used to that. It scared me terribly. And being as short as I was and being the new kid, I was picked on relentlessly. I remember going to school as a horror show. I would having to go to the bathroom because I was too scared to go into the bathrooms because I would get beat up. At the last year of middle school, we were about to move to another town, and I already seen how the cool kids acted. And I was like, I'm not going to let what happened this time happen at this new school. It was the mid-90s, early 90s, so I grew my hair long, had my pants baggy, got the skateboard, and it was like night and day. All of a sudden, I was Ferris Bueller, who could get away with murder, pretty girls left and right. It was amazing. It was a wonderful, carefree time where I could do anything I wanted. But I think being picked on made me want to be the coolest. So I wanted to push the envelope. So then it was drugs, to try to look cool. And started going to raves. It's the mid-90s. And the first one I went to, I got some LSD, and I went there, and all these beautiful girls. The music was loud, and everybody wanted to get in, and it really clicked inside me that I want to be a part of this. So me being the manipulative little rat that I am, weaseled my way into this rave company. And when you work for them, you would get, your little necklace with all the parties that you VIP to. They have little placards, VIP, and you would collect them if you work for them. So not only in Birmingham, I could go to big cities like New Orleans and Atlanta, to where these raves had tens of millions of people. And even though I wasn't working it, I could get in free, go past these lines with all these beautiful girls and their ugly boyfriends and walk right past them and go in. And that, did a lot for my self-esteem. But drugs were becoming to take a real hold on my on my mind, my psyche, the way I thought, it became everything to me. My girlfriend at the time told my parents I was doing drugs. It caused a lot of contention in the household because my mother was a drug addict too, but she was a pill addict. We didn't understand. Our family, when we go to family functions, they would pull me and my sister aside and be like, "What's wrong with your mom?" We didn't know. That's how she always acted. My friends would make fun of her, the way she talked. She would get my friends to get pills for her, but we didn't understand the seriousness of it. But during my senior year, some of my friends had dropped out, and to me, it felt like they were being adults now. They didn't have to go to school. They were working. So I wanted to drop out too, being the fool I was, and my dad was just so overwhelmed with my mother having to move to all these different houses, working at the post office, that he just kind of broke apart and let it happen. This girl I knew, when I first met her, she was real chubby, had short black hair, was not interested. She calls me up one day, the day after one of my cousins got in a car wreck and died. His name was Smack. We call him Smack. The last name was Smaralia. He was real popular at the school too. It really made everybody sad, but she called me. She's like, "Pick me up. I got a bunch of ecstasy, cocaine." And so I went and picked her up. But when I picked her up, she didn't look like she did. She had long blonde hair, was tan, really beautiful. And my world changed. What she gave us was not ecstasy. It was called DXM, dextromethorphan, which you find in Robitussin. Kids take to Robotrip. This was pure powdered. And we weren't prepared for what it did. So it sent all of us into such a bad trip. It's kin to ketamine and PCP. It's in the same family. So you can imagine what this is doing to a kid who's only 18 years old and didn't know what was going on. The next thing I know, I'm traveling with her to Atlanta and then to Florida, where she was living with her friend Nova. We're selling these pills left and right. Nova's boyfriend Dan worked at Club La Vila in Panama City Beach, which is the spot of spring break. So again, I'm walking past this line of all these hot girls and their boyfriends and walking right into the place, being cool, But things were getting sour quick. We mixed LSD and DXM one night and was on the beach praying to God to please bring me down. And as we were walking away, I saw it was Krishna, the Hindu god, hallucination. But as I was staring at him, he blinked. And when that happened, I still remember that moment crystal clear. And everything inside me broke. Everything I thought I knew about, because I grew up Roman Catholic, very Catholic. I knew everything. That was what was real, right? That was what was. But at that moment, everything broke apart. Came back home. We broke up. I was literally in bed with another girl when I got a phone call. I picked it up. She told me she was pregnant. My dad kicks me out of the house, divorces my mom, tries to save his own mind. I'm floating around. We have this child. Her name is Sierra. Beautiful little girl. But through another girlfriend, I met this guy who had methadone. This was a very scary guy. There's a documentary called Skinheads in Birmingham and another one on Amazon Prime. This guy, I'm not going to say his name because I don't need repercussions from this, but these were some of his little minions. These guys were violent and scary, and again, something I'm not used to, but I'm becoming an addict. I need these methadone pills. So I'm living with him, hearing all this hate. Nowadays, they're not like that. They understand that they were brainwashed and just full of hate. But at the time, we're young, and these people are scary mean. I am a junkie. No one wants to talk to me. Everything's falling apart. The world is scary. I end up in jail. As I'm in there withdrawing from the methadone, these guys are talking about being in the army. I'm like, maybe that's what I need. So tell my dad. And he's like, you're just saying that so I'll come bail you out. No, I'm really going to do it. Get out of jail. I joined the Army. 3 days after my 21st birthday, I shipped off to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Still withdrawing off the methadone. It was horrible at first. I was short, had a short last name. They loved to pick on me. And it was bad. But at the end of basic training, one of my drill sergeants introduced me to his whole family and said, this is where I lost the $200, betting that he was going to be the first one to skip out and go home. But I stuck with it and made it through AIT and was assigned to the DMZ in Korea. First week I was there, they had these drills in the middle of the night where you put on your battle rattle and you go do these maneuvers. It's annoying, but it's supposed to be once every month. 2 weeks later, the sirens go off. People are yelling. It is not like it was last time. We have live rounds now and full battle rattle, everything. And it's 2 a.m. in Korea. And as we're staying there, I'll never forget, our first sergeant says, men, America's under attack. Someone flew 2 planes into the World Trade Tower. Again, my world changed. Everything was different then. They told us stories of espionage from North Koreans when we first went there, but we didn't believe this crap. But on guard duty, constantly cars are passing by, taking pictures of our camp. On one of these maneuvers, these 2 little girls try to run in between our tanks and were crushed. What an awful thing to see. And when we're out in the field, we have our concertina wire, our perimeter, razor wire. And they would send these little kids, we call them slicky boys, and they would try to sneak into our camp and take whatever they could. And in the middle of the night, you'd hear screaming, and you have to run out there, and there'd be some 12-year-old boy stuck in our razor wire that we'd have to, pull them out. And I don't know what intelligence did with them. We would just patch him up. But it was a crazy experience. Stayed there for a year, went back stateside. You're not supposed to go from one hot zone to another, and the DMZ is considered a hot zone. But no, they were going to send us immediately to Iraq. Now, on our trucks, I don't know if you know what a split ring is. On the outer of these huge tractor tires, on the outside, they have what looks like a giant steel washer. It's huge. It's made out of steel. It's about, it's really thick. People are killed by them all the time, so you air them up in a cage. My sergeant wasn't having it. We had to do it on the truck. The first one I did, I stood right in front of, but I got nervous. So the second one I did, and I did like that. The last thing I remember is a sound going ding, and that was it. I was on the ground when I came to. I had no idea what happened. They're like, whatever you do, don't look at your arm. So immediately I look at my arm, and all I see is bone. I see my muscles contracting. I see blood, and my arm is shaped, it's bent backwards. And it was an illegal order. That was against, it was against the Code of Military Justice. It was against the law to do, but nothing happened. He says apologies while I'm in the hospital. And after only a week and a half, the doctor takes me off pain pills. And it is ungodly painful. And not only that, I'm not supposed to do any work. My arm's been broken and they're not even fixing it. But no, my company wasn't having it. They were going to make me work no matter what. So I was like, I just want to go back into the hospital. I put in a request to go to an outside doctor, and the head of orthopedics was like, well, what's going on? I'll send you, but why? And I told him, I was like, I just had my arm broke, my humerus, and they took me off the pain pills. He's like, I don't know why. I don't know who told him to do that, but he took care of me. But then the monster reawoke after some time. It was painful, but there was also the added addiction and withdrawal. But they sent him to Iraq. So then I was screwed. The last year I was in the Army was them hunting me. They knew I was a drug addict. I didn't even have a TV in my room. So you're dealing with the very organized and very much physical life being in the military, being combat arms, with because they still didn't fix it. Broken arm and this screaming opiate addiction. And I almost killed myself twice. I tried to. I really did not want to go through this anymore. They ended up finally giving me a medical out. They gave me an honorable discharge because they knew what they had done. And they sent me home with my arm still broke. 2 years, my humerus was not attached. It was just my arm swinging around. I finally get it fixed at the VA in Birmingham. And 5 months later, I'm getting ready to go pawn some stuff, and my parents call. They're screaming, crying, and I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to know what's going on. So I hang up, and then one of my other friends calls. And I'm really sick, and I'm just like, who died, And I start naming people, and they're like, and then it finally clicks. I drive to my friend Paul's. I hadn't spoken to in about a year. And I was like, Sierra's dead, my daughter's dead. I don't know what happened. And Paul's like, no. It's got to be some mistake. So I go and sit down, and he calls my parents, and he turns to me and goes, Sierra did die. And I was thinking, how am I going to see her mother? How am I going to talk to Nicole about this? Because we weren't on horrible terms. We'd always just, thought we would end up marrying each other after we both got our shit together. But he said Nicole died too. They had got into a 6-car pileup on the way to school in the morning in the rain. They weren't the only ones that died. I buried them both the same day. My daughter in her little casket. Nicole looking like she was that day when I came and picked her up. And I turned in on myself. There was no one I could talk to understand this kind of trauma. I hated. I told God if he was real, as soon as I had a chance, I would kill him and everything he'd ever made. And I said the same thing to the devil too. I just wanted to destroy everything that was ever made, and I was very lonely. I didn't understand what was going on, and that huge trauma. Years later, that's why I started the Nashville Masterclass. It was going to be a thing about music and music theory, and one of my therapists goes, why don't you talk about trauma and drug addiction and homelessness and hopelessness? Help those people that are in this situation you're in that don't know, and also to help me, know there's other people. But during this time, I was in and out of jail. I did not care. Homelessness, constantly going to jail, being locked up in the little cell, withdrawing, only the Bible to read, and I was full of hate. I didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to turn my mind off. I had decided the world was a horrible place, that I'd been tricked, and this was just my living hell forever. I found out that here in Los Angeles, for veterans, they give free methadone at the VA. In Birmingham and anywhere in the South, you don't get that. You got to pay. So I came out here. They said they would give me a place to stay, but it turned out to be a place to stay for a month and a half. So I'm on the streets going to the clinic. I meet this girl, Jamie, and she was kind of cute. She was insane, but I didn't know how schizophrenic she was. And at the time, I didn't think I could do any better. I'm a homeless drug addict. I call home one day and find out that Nicole's mother had sued the people who had just made the highway that Nicole and Sierra died on. They didn't put a median, no yellow lines, and they sued them, and I got $1.5 million. It didn't really register at first. Nothing like this happens to me. It took about 3 months, and the money finally came. I had to go to Alabama to pick it up. My insane girlfriend didn't want me to go because that's how crazy she was, and it took a week or two to get out of her claws. I went home, got this check, took it to the bank that it was written on so they couldn't make me wait. They tried to. I was like, no, it's your bank. You have to honor it immediately. And I lived like people can only dream. I went from homeless to being a millionaire here in California. I got a place on Martell in West Hollywood, right off Sunset. And I had a Rolls Royce. I bought all this vintage furniture, Victorian love seats, and just buying drugs, whatever I want. People knew I had, but that's the thing, people knew I had money. And being homeless, I wanted to help my friends, of course, my good old buddies. So they would come by all the time needing help, giving money left and right. I decided I wanted to buy a house, bought one in Mexico. Those people weren't the rightful owners, and they ran off my money. I was surprised that the Mexican government got about $80,000 back and sent it to me. But money was going down, and you got to realize I didn't know how to handle money of this caliber. I didn't have anything. When I had everything, it was my parents. I didn't know how to handle this money. So I meet this guy that had a shop right down the street. It was a pet grooming place. He's like, we can build this huge place over the mountain over there in North Hollywood, and we'll make a bunch of money. We'll make it huge. And he knew good and well I was a junkie. He knew good and well I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm thinking, yeah, this is a good investment. I'll get money back. So I give him $250,000. And surprise, even when it's being built, you're not getting, who knows how long it's going to be to turn a profit. I know that now. He knew that then, but I didn't. So we have nothing, and I have to sell off the rolls. I sell out the furniture. I sell all the jewelry, the guitars, and little by little, we're becoming more and more poor until finally we're out. We end up here in the art district at the American Hotel, living in somebody else's nasty, squalid apartment filled with bed bugs. And when my girlfriend's pregnant, oh my God. So when her water breaks, I call an ambulance. She goes to the communal bathroom. It's for everybody. And is sitting on this toilet, going into labor, trying to shoot dope. I was on the methadone clinic at this time. I knew what was coming. But she's telling me, hold the paramedics off. I'm trying to I ripped it out of her hand, picked her up, pants down around her ankles, her screaming, hitting me, carried her downstairs to the ambulance. Even in the hospital after birth, she's telling me to go. You got to understand the level of insanity with this woman. I don't mind saying that because it is. It just is what it is. She wanted me to bring her cigarettes. She wanted me to bring her dope. And I wouldn't, because this was all, I stayed with the child the whole time. He was born addicted. Now, I had people around here getting mad at me when she was pregnant. You better stop her from doing this dope and stop her from smoking. I'm like, I've been begging her. What do you want me to do? Tie her to a chair? But the courts, when we went to court, the courts gave me full custody and said she had no right to see the child, because this was not the first time something like this happened. Lo and behold, she had another child by her father, this weird, hard guy that had been around all the time. He takes my money. I sent him money. And this guy is insane. They're religious sane. He holds his family by manipulation and sexual abuse. Right? So they're huge Christians. They're going to marry Jesus. God's coming for them. He manipulates his daughter by writing her letters saying he's Nicolas Cage. And this poor schizophrenic girl believes it to this day. that Nicolas Cage is writing her those letters, and he would get her to send him watches and money. I knew it was him. And when I found out about the child that was more than likely by him, that was finally when I was like, don't come near me again. But this child was adopted by a family, and they would let Jamie come. Her name was Jamie too. They would let her come and see the child. So I was like, she wanted me to keep our child so she could come see whenever she wanted. I was like, absolutely not. You're not a good person. And second of all, I'm on the methadone clinic and I'm homeless. We are in no position. Why would you want to do that to this child? So I made the decision to give him up for adoption to this family. It was one of the best sound decisions I've ever made, and it was in the midst of the worst decisions. So here I am in the Arts District. Move out to Skid Row once that guy comes from his apartment back. Now we're talking fighting for my life, because Jamie, still being a heroin addict, is scamming these guys. I go to the VA, they be selling dope out of there. I'll give you my food stamp card for this amount. There wouldn't be anything on the food stamp card. She'd get fronts. She would never pay them back. But would they go after her? They would go after me. So I'm homeless, had to figure out how to eat, walking everywhere, nasty clothes. I'm only weighing 100 pounds. And to get my methadone, I've got to go through a gauntlet of guys that are looking to kill me. And they caught me a few times. I was stabbed in front of the VA. I had my head smashed into a pylon out there over this. And they would find me out here in Skid Row. I was waiting on a bus, and one of them jumped out of their car and just beat me viciously in front of God and everybody. The bus driver didn't do anything. He just took off. Everybody just watched, and then he took off. It was insane. We went back to Birmingham. I talked her into doing that, and I thought, finally, we're safe. Until one day she gets on a bus and comes back out here. So back out I come because I'm a fool. I'm on drugs. I really don't understand what it's like to be separated. I'm in that mindset. Now we're living in South Central. She has this little place. I would walk to the Green Line every day to come downtown to get my methadone. I was able to get enough money in Birmingham to pay those guys off. So it's a little safer now. But in South Central, me being a 100-pound white guy, every time I go home, I would get stopped because they thought I was a crystal meth addict. And around that time, the Occupy Wall Street stuff started happening. And then I started seeing it right down there at City Hall, the Dragnet building. I would walk past it on Temple every day, walk past the Michael Jackson, Conrad Murray trial. That was the first one. And then I walked past the Occupy LA. And so it was something different, so I wanted to be a part of that. This does have something important to my story, I promise. I had met a croaker, a doctor that will prescribe anything if you pay him. And I was getting extra methadone, Xanax tablets, and Adderall. I've been taking Adderall for days. I've been up for days. Now, at night, during these rallies, helicopters would start flying overhead the LAPD. And one night, I lost it. I ran away from the helicopters, tripped over this one poor guy. He's like, hey, man, what? And I just ran off. But in my mind, in my hallucination, this guy was part of the cartel, and now he was chasing me. I was hiding everywhere, running. I made it somehow to West Hollywood, was hiding in buildings, like running into CVS. These people are trying to kill me. It wasn't just the regular psychosis shadow people. I was seeing full 3D figures, hearing audible hallucinations. They were going to kill me, and they were just following me everywhere I go. For 3 days, from downtown West Hollywood to East LA and back, 3 days I ran. 3 days without food, 3 days without my methadone, and 3 days without water. I went to 3 different police stations and begged them for help, begged them for water, begged them for food. Not one of them, not one time did any of them do anything. They didn't arrest me even though I was begging them to, because I thought I'd be safer in jail. They just laughed. Finally, on the third night, this poor girl saw what was going on and realized I was in amphetamine psychosis. She calls an ambulance. They take me to LA County Hospital, and of all the hallucinations, one of the nurses was my roommate in the Army. But it wasn't. It was really him, of all things, to run into this guy. It took me a couple of days to realize, even they gave me a shot of Valium and I finally slept. It still took me a few days to realize that none of that had ever really happened. I had just run around LA scaring the crap out of people, screaming about people following me that was never there. I go back to the Occupy LA thing, and that night they actually did raid. Fires were going, people were screaming, rubber bullets, batons. It was total anarchy. And the next day, the mayor was Villa, can't remember his name, Villa Rosa. He was like, and I like to say nobody got hurt, which was a total lie. But the story goes on. My mom, who I hadn't seen in years, my biological mother, wants me to come home. She misses me. I get on a bus, finally, to leave LA and go home. When I get to the bus station, there's nobody there to pick me up, so I call my aunt. And she said she'd been trying to get a hold of my mom all day, that she's probably out with my sister. But my sister didn't come to see my mom. For some reason, the sliding glass door to her apartment was open, so I go in and look around, call her name, don't hear it. I see her bottle of Klonopin, and as a junkie I am, I slip some into my hand. I keep calling her name, and I finally find her dead on the floor with all of my favorite foods that she used to make for me as a child, all across the counter, waiting for me in little presents. I remember bending down and just stroking her hair and saying, "Mom, I'm home." And then I went and told my aunt, and she made a huge mockery by shaking her. She was very obviously dead, but she just made it worse. They said I missed her by about 2 hours. It was an aneurysm. And then my dad and stepmom picked me up. I went to her funeral sick, and I was 100 pounds. I looked gross. I looked like I was in my 50s. It was really bad to see. And I remember asking them, "So when are you guys going to take me to the methadone clinic?" And they're like, "Oh, no, that's the end. This is the end of all this." And they lived out in the country, so they locked me in their house. And I came off methadone cold turkey. And it takes months, not like heroin. The methadone gets in your bones, and it takes months of just basketball diaries, train spotting-esque withdrawals. But I finally started to see that this terrible, horrible, evil world was the drugs interacting with my mind. I was finally able to see clear, and I was happy. I had to go to jail a couple of times to get my license back because I had warrants, but I did it. And I was doing good, but as soon as I left their house and got my own apartment, it started again. The VA finally gave me my disability. And let me tell you about how the VA, they hurt me. I'm scarred for the rest of my life, PTSD and physical ailments, nerve damage. They did not give me my disability when I left like they should have. I had to fight for 8 years, and you know what they gave me? 10%. $100 a month. I was like, no. Because my doctors all approved my 100. Well, eventually they approved my 60, and I got about $32,000 in back pay. Met another girl who was more than happy to, spend my money again, and then ended up screwing my roommate and leaving with my car. A couple months after that, my stepbrother, who was really close to me, we would do drugs together. He was an opiate addict just like I was. So he was the only one I could really, click with, communicate with. We had a rapport and we vibed with each other. And, drug addicts are ubiquitous all over, but it's hard to try to find one that really vibes with you. But he did. He went up to Nashville and got clean. We got a call. That summer he had died unexpectedly in his sleep as my parents were going to see him. It's been almost a decade and it just doesn't feel like he's ever left, but he's gone. So they asked me if I wanted to go to Nashville and do the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I'll try. And there, instead of being in a rehab where everybody wants to get high and get out of there, these people wanted to be clean. They were happy. They didn't look like death. They had money and new things, phones, technology, computer. They were in the world and they were doing it. And it's the first time that I was like, I could do this. There's another world. And I did. I got clean. I stayed clean for 2 years. But one thing I didn't realize is that just because you get off drugs does not solve your problems. I didn't know it then. I still had the trauma, the hate, the anger, the nasty idiosyncratic behavior that comes with having to adapt to the streets and drugs. And girl after girl would go out with me and they would, eventually get mad and push me out. And it was always, they're crazy. Why do I keep going out with the crazy ones? I relapsed, of course, and then started a journey of manipulating and womanizing, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was moving in with a girl, living at their house, eating their food, living with them, and I told myself in my mind, you're just dating them, you're just going out, what's wrong? But I go from one to the other. There was no time by myself to work on me, to work on my skills. It was always latch on to somebody else. There were some good adventures. I ended up with a girl who went to the Fare Thee Well last Grateful Dead show in Chicago. Everybody in the world wanted to go. These tickets were thousands and thousands of dollars. And she gave me a whole 3-day pass. Took me to Chicago, nice hotel. First day, first set, third song. I'm like, I need to go. I got a stomach ache. Proceeded to indulge in everything I could find. Cocaine, psilocybin, smoking, nitrous. I went into psychosis again, wandering around Chicago, wandering back and forth from the concert and all over the place. I literally forgot who I was. This is a lot of damage from the psychedelics, the psychedelic trauma. I don't know if you know much about psychedelics and ego loss, if you've ever heard of it. Your ego dissolves, you can't remember who you are. Being human, you're just a consciousness. Well, this will happen to me in my sleep. And when I take a lot of drugs, it happens again. I don't understand. I'm in a world. I was never me. I was never born. Humans don't exist. The universe doesn't exist. I'm just a consciousness seeing and experiencing these things. Very scary. But I came to the very last night to hear their last song, Touch of Grey. And on the ride back to Birmingham, she promptly broke up with me as she should. And this would continue to cycle. I got clean again, lived with this young 23-year-old girl, but still, I would get on every single dating site and new girl all the time, just so codependent, girl after girl. Now it became, I think it's also something to do with being picked on so much and made fun of. Well, look how many girls I can get. Ended up back homeless. Was on the methadone clinic, couldn't pay for it. Back to heroin, back to crystal meth. And then one day, in a state of psychosis, this guy beats me hard. Now I'm walking around Nashville, bloody, blood dripping off of me. I go buy some dope. It wasn't real, but I don't notice because I'm so tweaked, been up for days. And I'm laying on this hill behind the store I've never been to all night, just holding on, thinking I'm going to die any minute, vomiting everywhere. I start walking. I see some guy cutting the grass with scissors at 3 a.m. at a Waffle House. This was real. This guy was on crystal meth too. Walked past this store and walked up a hill to a hospital, the whole time yelling, "Please help me. Please help me." And I was just at one of my worst points. The pain was unbearable. I got to the hospital, and of all things, they thought I was psychotic. They thought I had schizophrenia, and they gave me Haldol, which is like Thorazine, which can also cause your muscles to stiffen and make your neck turn or your muscles pull in. To me, it pulls my ankles in, where I'm walking on my ankles for 3 days and makes all my muscles contract. So I'm dope sick. I've been up for 3 days. I'm tweaking. And now I've got this to contend with. I'm screaming for the doctors. This all leads to something. I finally leave there, walking on my ankles, get a bus downtown to downtown Nashville. My buddy Eddie was down there. I'd known Eddie forever. He knew my mom. He would stay with us. And he used to be a junkie, but now he's an alcoholic. Very bad, killing himself. His face was bloated, but he was my friend. The first night, again, I stayed up hallucinating. The next day, I stopped hallucinating and hobbled my way closer downtown. And there's this guy in a car, this Russian. He says, "Hey, come here. Do you know where to find any dope?" Aha, a way out of this mess, out of this misery. So I get in the car with him, go to the same guy that screwed me over the night before, bought more fake stuff. So now this Russian guy thinks I did it, that I've got the real dope and I screwed him over. So he's holding me hostage in his car. He's delivering race car. He has this huge trailer behind his car and he's driving around Nashville screaming at me, hitting me. I'm like, I don't have it. That guy screwed us over. We end up in the worst part of Nashville. And that's very hard to find because Nashville is really nice all over. But we're in a horrible place. He picks up these guys, buys crack. So now everybody's in the car. People I don't know, guy holding me hostage. Everybody's smoking crack. One of the guys back there gives me a hit. I don't really want it, but I'm so sick, I'm down for anything.
Yeah.
So,
How much longer is the story?
about 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
Oh, it's not going to go crazy. This is where I'm winding down. So he finally lets me out. And I'm walking away, and everything in my life has culminated to this point. This is what I mean. I was winding down to this. I am sick. I've been up for days. And I go to the walking bridge in Nashville over the Cumberland River. And I'm looking over, and I'm like, why do I keep becoming homeless? There's so many people that never have to do. Why do I keep going back to drugs? Why does everybody I try to have a relationship with push me away? Why are you so... And I was like, why don't you just jump? Just do it. Just why do you want to keep living like this? It's always going to happen. It keeps happening. And I had an epiphany. It's because you're a manipulative, selfish jerk that never learned to live on his own. You live on hatred from the trauma that's happened to you, and you're trying to pass that hatred and negativity onto everybody else because you feel you deserve it. And you're always waiting for external forces to bring you happiness. But why don't you just try being happy inside? I think people like that feel that that's their role in life and in the universe, is to be mad, to have this negativity. But I realized you didn't have to be like that. And then I realized all those girls that pushed me away, all my friends, they weren't crazy. It was me. It was always me. And I walked off that bridge, and I never went back to methadone. I got on Suboxone for a while. It didn't cause me to get high like methadone. And I started volunteering, working with animals, talking to vets, and just learning to care about others. Empathy, that was what's going to save me from this trauma, from these nightmares, from this constant hatred of things that have happened. The only way to deal with it is to negate that, to be positive, to show love. That's the only thing that could save me. So that day on that bridge, when all that happened, it caused a spark in me to change and to learn that I'm never there. I've never got to a point where now I know I'm good. Every day I grow. Every day I'm going to do something to make my life tomorrow better and to make life for others. I love to donate to the Beagle Freedom Project, the ASPCA, the Humane Society, St. Jude, Wounded Warrior, to give to others and not do it so you can say, hey, look what I did. Do it because these people need it. Don't you know how it felt to be like that? And that is what's let me survive. That's why I'm still alive. Now I teach music theory and guitar online. Taught myself, I spent years learning music theory. I learned how to weld, how to work with metal production. There's so many things I've learned and excelled at. And now this crappy, tiny little channel that I could care less about fame or monetizing it. I just want to help those people that felt that way. And so they know that there's other people like that. And I like to know other people like that. It's good. I need to have that kind of communion with other people that have gone through that trauma. And that's what saves me. That's what makes me wake up every morning. And yeah, there's so much more. I could tell stories like that all day and never end. But this is a good place to end for today, I think.
All right.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jamie. That's a hell of a story.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.